beautiful. I wish there was a way we could see it better.
We can with Mrs. Orr's grant.
How?
Stick around because Education Today starts now.
Welcome to Education Today. I'm Jenna Walsinovich of Ford City High School in the Armstrong School District. Tonight continues our new segment here at Education Today. As mentioned in previous episodes, budgets are becoming tighter and tighter. Faculty and staff alike need to continue to be creative in ways to stretch the dollar as much as possible. We've talked about a handful of grants already that were received by teachers last year. Tonight is the final episode in this series focusing on teachers awarded grants. These grants are made possible through the ASD Foundation. Tonight, we will go on location to talk to our guest about her grant. Now we will go to Paige Klingsmith, who is at Ford City High School.
Thank you, Jenna. I'm Paige Klingsmith here at FCHS, sitting here with Mrs. Vicki Orr. Welcome to Education Today.
Thank you, Paige.
Would you please tell us about your current roles with the district and how long you've been teaching?
I currently teach astronomy and physical science, and this is my 36th year of teaching.
What is the name of your grant and when was it awarded to?
The name of the grant is The Earth Rocks, but the Sun Rules, and I received that grant last school year.
What kind of grant did you apply for? What students were impacted by it?
I applied for the $1,000 grade level grant, and the students that were impacted were my astronomy students and my 8th grade environmental science students.
Could you tell us a little bit about the grant that you wrote?
Primarily, the material or the equipment was a solar telescope, and it was to focus our attention on the sun as we're coming into solar maximum in 2013. And it's a very important time because the sun really ramps up its activity, and so we investigated magnetism, we looked at past solar activity, and we used the telescope to look at what the sun is currently doing.
It's really interesting. How did you come up with this idea?
Primarily because it was going into the solar max, and that's always a very exciting time. The other aspect is the fact that solar max, the sun actually has the ability to cause a lot of problems for us on Earth. If there's a large solar flare or coronal mass ejection, which are much more common during solar max, it can knock out our communication satellites, which would affect your cell phone reception. It can also cause an overloading of our electrical grid, which could put cities in the dark for a long period of time. So it would affect our financial institutions, communication, having a lot of impacts. And so it's very important for people going forward to understand our relationship with the sun.
Did or does this grant cover only your classes, or do multiple grades and teachers take advantage of these as well?
Well, currently I'm using it with my classes in astronomy and Science 8. And it is, because the telescope will persist for many, many years, this will be something that students will be able to use for many years going forward.
It's a good opportunity for them. How did the students react to this grant?
I think with the entire project there was a lot of positive impact. We did a lot of investigations with magnetism, like I said, and actually the solar activity is very highly related to magnetic activity, so for us understanding how magnetism works and polarity, it gives us a better understanding of the sun. We also looked at exciting gases to see what kind of elements are in the sun. We looked at the periodicity to the sun's cycle, and you can also try to relate, scientists are trying to develop a correlation between our weather on Earth and the solar cycle. And so I think the students received it very well.
Have you noticed a difference in the students' learning as far as picking up on concepts more quickly or things related to that?
I'm very much a hands-on teacher, and I think all concepts are much more readily grasped by the students if they can do things hands-on, apply, tie concepts together. So yeah, I think that anytime you can, viewing the sun seeing what the sun is doing in real time is very exciting, looking at prominences and things like that. So,
What was the grant writing process like? Have you done anything like this before?
I actually enjoy writing grants. I was involved in writing a grant for the Star Lab, the portable planetarium. I've written, they seem to be primarily astronomy oriented. I wrote a grant for the space vehicles that we construct out of Connects. So I've been writing grants for quite some time now. In the past, I wrote one to get a weather station. I like the creative aspect of writing grants, much like I like the creative aspect of designing my own lab activities for the classroom. So that's something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of myself.
What was or is the biggest benefit to having this grant awarded and instituted into your classes?
Having the solar telescope, getting people to understand the sun, getting people to understand that as we are so dependent on technology. We are electricity driven. You know, we can't even get rid of our waste. We can't pump gas. We can't do credit transactions. We're so heavily dependent on our electrical grid that we have got to find ways and get people educated in, including our lawmakers, in what we need to do to protect ourselves if the sun decides to hurl a large blob of plasma at us.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Mrs. Orr. Let's go back to the studio for a brief break.
Thanks, Paige. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with Armstrong School District's Education Today. Stick around.
Before I came to IUP, I had no idea what college would be like or what role I would play or where I'd be in the future. But when I came to IUP, everything changed. I met people who really made me feel like I belonged. I had great classes at a great nationally ranked university. Hi, my name's Megan Miller. I'm a fine arts major, and this is my university.
We're back with Armstrong School District's Education Today. We're talking about grants awarded through the ASD Foundation. Tonight's grant is The Earth Rocks, But the Sun Rules, which was written by Mrs. Vicki Orr. Our own Paige Klainsmith is on location at Ford City High School with Mrs. Orr. Paige?
Thanks, Jenna. We're back here with Mrs. Orr. Have you been able to sustain this grant into this year, or was it a one-year project?
It isn't a one-year project. It is something that will be sustained throughout the time that I'm teaching astronomy, and hopefully after I retire, somebody else will pick up the idea and keep going with it.
Are there STEM-related objectives that this grant incorporates? If so, how do these affect students?
Absolutely, STEM relationships in understanding what we need to do to protect our satellites. How can we upgrade our electrical grid? In fact, it was in the news recently that the United Nations is making a proposal that all nations look at not only protecting ourselves, having some kind of a system, and as you know, we just got in Russia, a meteor exploded over Russia, something that hasn't happened for over 100 years. Well, the last very, very large solar flare event was about 150 years ago, called the Carrington event. Well, 150 years ago, we didn't have the electrical dependency that we do now. And so the United Nations is asking all the nations to come up with a plan, because if you put an entire continent in the dark for months at a time, it will create all kinds of social issues. And so we need people to come up with creative ideas as to how we can protect ourselves from solar activity.
What kind of activities do students complete with this grant?
Like I had mentioned earlier, we used magnets and iron filings and looked at the patterns to magnetic fields. And then we also looked at sunspots, actual pictures of sunspots, to see how the magnetic field lines on the sun correlate to the magnetic field lines that we created in the classroom. We took gases of various elements and put them excited them with electricity, and looked at the spectral patterns to see what kind of elements exist on the sun. You can also do long-range studies in the periodicity. There was a time in the 1700s where there were no sunspots for a long period of time, and it was called the Maunder minimum, and that happened to correlate with a very long cold period on the Earth. So we know that there is some connection between solar activity and our weather, and students looking for those connections and trying to come up with, you know, how we are very closely connected. The sun isn't, it's 93 million miles away, but we really are in the sun's environment, and it has a huge impact on us in many ways.
What are your goals with this grant?
Well, mostly to educate students as to how we are related to the sun, and to inspire learning, you know, get people excited about science in general. That's always
You do conduct really good science classes, and I'm in astronomy, as you know, and I have a lot of fun with that class.
Thank you.
How difficult would this project have been to execute had the grant had not been received?
I've been doing a solar unit for many years, and also have a solar telescope that is just a white image where you can see the sunspots, but you can't see any of the other features on the sun. So it's with this telescope that allows us to see really the sun in real time, and how it's behaving, and you know, how active it is or not active it is. So this is definitely an enhancement to the curriculum.
Is there anything else that we may not have covered related to this grant or the process that you'd like to share?
Just that I think that it's very important for everybody to become aware of, you know, not only do we have to worry about rocks from space, but we have to worry about what our sun has the potential to do, and take action. You know, not just sit back until a disaster happens and then try to be proactive rather than reactive. So, and not trying to scare students that something bad is going to happen, because certainly we have very creative people that can come up with solutions, and we need people to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Orr, for your time. For Education Day, I'm Paige Klingensmith reporting from Ford City High School. Let's go back to Jenna in the studio.
Thanks, Paige. Well, that's our show for today. I'd like to thank our guest, Mrs. Vicki Orr, a teacher here in the Armstrong School District and writer of the grant that brought this science grant to her students here at ASD. Our thanks go out to the TV production students of Ford City High School, led by their teacher, Dr. Bobby Hamill. They were our film crew for today. Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. Visit our website for updated information about the district, and have a great week.
Welcome to Education Today. I'm Courtney Edwards
And I'm Blake Davis.
of Katanning High School in the Armstrong School District. Cell phones have become a huge part of everyday life, especially for students. With the increased usage of cell phones comes an increase in the number of potential consequences. Tonight, we are going to discuss the students' perspective on cell phone usage and their use while in school. With us tonight, we have two of our AHS-TV production students. Welcome to Education Today. Would you please introduce yourselves and tell us what year you are in?
I'm Lucian Holian, and I'm a junior at Katanning Senior High School.
I'm Kiara Ebig, and I'm a senior at Katanning High School.
Thanks. I just have some questions for you. How long have you had a cell phone?
I got my first cell phone back in 8th grade.
I got my first cell phone back in 7th grade.
Do you currently own a smartphone?
Nope,
Yes, I do.
I do not.
All right. Do you use your phone in school?
I try not to, but if my mom texts me and I have to pick something up, I will. Take it out, you know, send her a quick message back.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I do use it from time to time. Not when this teacher is trying to explain something to me, but when, you know, there's nothing really to do and I'm not paying attention really, yeah, I will use my smartphone.
All right. I think we all can say that we've done that.
Yeah.
Do you use your phone to help you in class sometimes? If you do, give me a few examples.
I've used my phone to help me in class sometimes. If, you know, I get a question from my dad about something we're doing in Power Tech, but that's probably the only time. That was a one-time thing.
Yeah, I don't really use my phone in class for school purposes.
You never use it for like a calculator or anything?
No, I do. I use it for a calculator, but that's about it. I never really looked up anything for a test.
Do you think that it's fair that only some people can use them just because of the prices?
I think that if we are allowed to have cell phones in school, I don't think it would be quite fair because that'd be giving a higher advantage to kids that have smartphones compared to kids that don't. Kids without the cell phones would have to do more work and have to use more school resources than the kids with the smartphones. So I think it would be unfair.
It's true.
Would you please repeat the question?
Do you think that it's fair that only some people can use them in school just because of the price if we were allowed to use them in school?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't have much to talk about on that topic.
All right. Do you think that the use of smartphones could help you improve your grades if you were able to find different resources and like apps on your phone?
If I had a smartphone and I was able to look up questions and I was allowed to use it, I would. But I don't think it'd be fair to the other kids, but I'd still do it just to help myself.
I agree. I would do that too. But I do have a smartphone, but at the same time I don't do that, so.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with Armstrong School District's Education Today.
Before I came to IUP, I had no idea what college would be like or what role I would play or where I'd be in the future. But when I came to IUP, everything changed. I met people who really made me feel like I belonged. I had great classes at a great nationally ranked university. Hi, my name is Megan Miller. I'm a fine arts major, and this is my university.
We're back with Armstrong School District's Education Today. We're talking about cell phone usage in schools from the student's perspective. What are some reasons why students should not be allowed to have smartphones in school?
It would be a distraction. When the teacher's teaching, they'd take them out, be looking, playing games, surfing the web, instead of paying attention to what the teacher's saying.
I agree, and I feel that it's rude. The teacher's there to teach you and you're there to listen, and if you're playing with your smartphone, then how are you supposed to listen and give your full attention?
Do you think that the use of cell phones in school would help or hinder students?
They could help students. In school, they'll be able to look at questions, look them up if they're doing a book report and they don't have access to the computer at the time. They could look up information to help them.
I agree with that, but at the same time, what about the people who don't have smartphones and they don't have a computer at the time? Then what are they supposed to do?
Do you feel that more students abuse smartphones rather than help with their learning?
I can see it both ways. I have seen students using their cell phones a lot to help them in school, but at the same time, I can see students messing around on them.
I think that students mess around on their phones more than using them to help them in school. Like, would you rather go on Twitter or would you rather use a calculator?
If cell phones were no longer banned, do you think that students will still abuse their phones?
I believe that if cell phones were no longer banned, I believe there'd be more abuse of cell phones. There'd be no risk of losing your cell phone and getting it taken away. So there'd be more opportunities for you to abuse.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're not allowed to, but at the same time, if you're not allowed to do something, then you're going to do it. But if you are allowed to do something, then it's not going to be something to not do, so you won't do it.
In order to keep up with today's society, do you think more school districts should allow the use of smartphones for educational purposes?
I think that in some classes, the use of cell phones would help, like physics or chemistry or some of the higher classes. They're faster than the computers we have in school.
I agree with that. And there also is a lot of sites on the computers at school that you can't go on that have more information. And on your smartphone, you can go on any site you want.
Well, that's our show for today. I'd like to thank our guest, Kiara and Lucian, for taking the time to talk us about the usage of cell phones in school. Our thanks go out to the TV production students of Katanning High School, led by their teacher, Mr. Don Swanson. They were our film crew today. Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. Visit our website for updated information about the district, and have a great week.